Okay, we're going to continue to talk. Okay, the next thing that we're going to release to the public is no new knowledge other than what are you getting right now by I don't know, like music, like you're playing music and then you're getting songs. What are you getting from overhearing other people when they're listening to music or they're um, talking to their friend on the phone? What are you learning about all of these things? And then you have to tell yourself, all of this stuff are like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and the jigsaw puzzle is trying to figure out what's going on around you, especially stuff that involves you, but what's really going on, and you're just picking up lots of information, and the conclusions that you want to draw are mostly like, what is the story that is going on around me? And if your story is it's just chaos, I can't see the use of the patterns that I'm going through. And then somebody wants to say, well, we read today, someone says, some people, when they have the opportunity to get back at you karmically, they go past doing karmic harm to you, and then they go into full on revenge. So we don't want to belabor the point, but it's always a good practice to try to understand why you feel the way you do. Is someone trying to pull the wool over your eyes? Or are you so jaded that even when they're joking around with you, you take it so seriously because you're so over traumatized by the feeling that, it's just like, some event that happened to you was like, this is like seriously, why did this happen in my reality? And then there's always people are going to say, oh, well, look at the bright sides and how did you benefit? And, you know, um, anyway, these are just parts of your story in your own life, and maybe there's certain things that you just can't figure out. Maybe there's certain things that the more you thought you knew the reason for things being this way, the more you examine your reasons, you go, these reasons really aren't good enough. They're really not good enough. And I used to think these were good reasons for me thinking this way, but the more I think about these reasons, the more weak these reasons seem to be. And everything that supports your belief in certain things being certain ways, it just gets eroded away. And then you just have your plain old belief. And then what we do is we say, well, that's a rigid intellectual opinion. And they're dangerous. You don't want to become attached to rigid intellectual opinions. Spiritually, it's dangerous. Because the damn thing will come to possess you. It'll want to fuck with you. It'll want to change your life. It's a rigid intellectual opinion. And intellectual opinions are, generally speaking, they calibrate in the 400s on the scale of human consciousness. And remember, 540 is unconditional love. So these rigid intellectual opinions, maybe you can make one that's full of love, but there is a big red flag waving saying, don't go near these things. They're like a double-edged sword. You pick them up and, so they work for cutting certain things, but the problem is, yes, they're really good scissors for cutting through things. But they don't have a reverse on them. In other words, if you cut a limb off a tree, you're not going to be able to put that limb back on the tree. It's basically off for good. So you use the cutter, and you don't have a way to, like duct tape this enormous limb back onto a tree. So that's gone. You can't reverse that. So that is why you want to avoid these rigid intellectual opinions about everything. Now, what about your intentions because you really intend on doing something that you have to do? Is it a rigid intellectual opinion, or is it an empirical fact? That is, if you caught foxes in your chicken coop and you had dead chickens in there, um, um, would you say, well, the foxes never killed those chickens? And then would you decide, well, foxes have they have a right to life on my property as long as they don't get into my chickens? And then at that point, then they're costing me money, and I was going to eat those chickens myself, and so it's not like I built went to all this work to make chickens, so that the foxes, can hop the fence, and so then you might start saying, okay, so I'm going to like target foxes, um, because I don't want them around at all. I don't want anything that can get into my chicken coop, like rats or things either. I don't want them. So I'm going to get myself a 22 rifle, and I'm going to look for varmints, and I'm going to shoot them. What is the karmic Miranda on one of these kind of ideas? Because it was, you needed it for um, your income. Well, you weren't going to eat all of those eggs that those hens produced, unless you only had like one laying hen or something. But, maybe it was for your family or, your neighborhood block. But these animals, well, do they have a right to your eggs or not? The answer to that is, I don't have an answer. It's one of those kind of questions that make you go, hmm. And, on one side, you might have people that are like the vegans that are like, those foxes have a right to be able to roam around on the planet as much as you can. You're a human, you're smart, you should be able to keep those foxes out of the henhouse. And that's the problem with humans, is that they're really good at designing traps. And the great big trap that we all keep talking about here on planet Earth is captured by weird theories. Like weird theories that there's really magical beings like Thoth or Hermes or Quicksilver, Mercury, who were amazing magicians, and they could do Jedi mind tricks with us for the purposes of teaching us things. Or you could just consider it a mythology and be very wary of people who are invoking, I'm Merlin and I'm here to tell you what you need to do with your life or something. Because, you can find these kind of actors in Disney World, and they might be very good at acting, but doesn't mean you should evict yourself from your house and move to Disney World so you can talk to Mickey Mouse all day. Then again, if you're rich enough, Orlando's got a nice climate, and once the COVID-19 vaccine gets injected into, oh, did you hear the latest problem? Well, most of the vaccines are going to require a booster shot within a few months. And the statistics say that people are very poor at getting their booster shots. So the effectiveness of a lot of these vaccines is going to be not 70%. I don't know what it's going to be, but with only one shot that people get. So, but there are some, like Johnson and Johnson apparently has you only have to get one shot. You don't have to get a booster, but that one is slow to get released. It's a secondary candidate. So, are you going to wait for Johnson and Johnson, or are you just going to rush through? And well, it's a lot of money. It's like going to be like mass buying by the United Nations. You might get it for like $20 or $30 for one person for one shot. So to do two people just for the product, $60. Shipping, handling, security. Apparently, the Canadian military is going to provide security. So, you have to figure that it's costing somebody has to pay the paychecks of those people. And then, then you have to pay for a nurse or a doctor to do the injections. And you have to have, like, hotels for all these people to stay in. And, well, I don't know if they're coming from, well, maybe you have local people that would do it. Anyway, the whole point of the matter is lost on me. Quicksilver, Mercury, is there any super being that you can imagine who could get into your head and tell you that no, can't imagine it? That's a big problem.